Hello, this is Mrs. Boots, and we're going to do our practice problems for the synthetic division and theorems lesson. First few problems are for the rational root theorem. Remember, the rational root theorem looks at the constant at the end divided by the leading coefficient, specifically the factors of those numbers. So let's list all the factors for 18, our constant at the end. That would be plus or minus 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, and 18. Now we need to determine what happens if we divide each of those numbers by 2. 1 divided by 2 would give us 1/2. 2 divided by 2 gives us 1. We don't need to write that one. 3 divided by 2. Now, why didn't we write it? Because it's a duplicate. Is 3 over 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. We've got it. 9 divided by 2, so 9 over 2. 18 divided by 2. That's a duplicate as well. So all my possible roots are the positive and negative of each of these numbers. Number 2. The constant is 64. My leading coefficient is 1. So I only have to list the factors, or the things that multiply to give me 64. Plus or minus. 1. 2 goes into 64. 4 goes into 64. 8. Well, that's 8 times 8, right? 16, which was multiplied by 4. 32, which was multiplied by the 2, and then 64. Since the leading coefficient is 1, we're not going to have a second set. These are all of the possible roots that we could look for. Number 3. What's the constant? 30. What's the leading coefficient? 1. So I only need to worry about the 30. What is everything that will multiply to give me a 30? Or, another way to put it, what can divide evenly into 30? 1, 2, 3, 5 times 6 gives me 30, so both of those. 3 was multiplied by 10, 2 was multiplied by 15, and 1 is multiplied by 30. These would be all the possible roots for this polynomial. Number 4. What's the constant? 12. What's the leading coefficient? 4. So I'm going to have at least 2 sets. Let's look at my 4 first. My 4 is divisible by 1, 2, and 4. So I have to go through and divide everything by 2 and everything by 4. Starting with the 12 first. Plus or minus. What multiplies to give me the 12? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. All of those numbers will divide evenly into the 12 and are factors of it. Now, let's look at the 2. The 2 is the factor of the 4. Divide each of these numbers by 2. I get 1/2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, which is a duplicate. Then I have 3/2. 4 divided by 2 is duplicate. 6 divided by 2 is duplicate. And 12 divided by 2 is duplicate. So now, let's divide them all by 4. 1 divided by 4 is unique. 2 divided by 4 is 1/2. 3 divided by 4 is unique. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 6 divided by 4 gives me 3/2, which is already on there. And 12 divided by 4 gives me 3. So all of my possible roots are contained in this list. Number 5. What's the constant? 40. What's the leading coefficient? 2. Okay, So for the 2, there's only 1 and 2. So we know we're going to have to divide everything by 2. Let's go back to 40. Plus or minus. What numbers divide evenly into 40? 1, 2, 4, 5, 8, 10, 20, and 40. Notice 1 and the number itself are always included in the list. Now we divide each of those by 2 and see if any are unique. 1 divided by 2, 1/2, not on the list. 2 divided by 2 is 1, that's duplicate. 4 divided by 2 is 2, duplicate. 5 divided by 2, that's unique. 8 divided by 2 is 4, 10 divided by 2 is 5, 20 divided by 2 is 10, 40 divided by 2 is 20. So my complete list is everything that we have here. These are all the possible roots that we could have. Now in reality, this is an x cubed. Only 3 of these numbers are going to work. Number 6. What's my constant? 30. What's my leading coefficient? 1. So all I need to list are the factors of 30. That's 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15, and 30. All of these could be possible roots. How many are going to work? Only 4. Number 7. Now we're actually doing our synthetic division. Take your divisor, x plus 7, set it equal to 0. Solve for x. X equals -7. That goes in the box. Now write down the coefficients. 4, 5, -42. Draw a line leaving enough space in between to fit a few numbers. The first number is going to come down. That's the 4. -7 times 4 is -28. Now add the column. 5 and -28 gives me -23. Now multiply. -7 times -23 is 161. Now add the column. 161 minus 42 is 119. 119 is our remainder. It's not 0, so this is not a factor. So what is my quotient? Remember, we have to put our x's in there. These numbers are the coefficients. So I have 4x. I started with x squared. Decrease it by 1. 4x minus 23. Include your remainder. Plus 119 divided by x plus 7. This is the quotient for this problem. Number 8. Set the divisor equal to 0. X plus 5 equals 0. Solve for x. X equals -5. Write down the coefficients. 1. But then I'm missing some terms, so I have to put my placeholders. There's a 0 for x squared, a 0 for x, and a -125. Leave a little bit of space. Drop the first number down. Now multiply. -5 times 1 is -5. Add the column. -5. -5 times -5 is +25. Add the column. 25. -5 times -25 is -125. That is, when we add the column, -250. Obviously, if the signs had been opposite, this would have worked. But our remainder is not 0, so it's not a factor. I'm pretty sure you could guess what is a factor, though. Okay, let's write out our quotient. We started with x cubed, so now we have an x squared. So I have 1x squared minus 5x plus 25 minus the remainder of 250 over x plus 5. This is the quotient for this problem. Number 9. Set the divisor equal to 0 and solve for x. X equals -3. That goes in the box. Now I need to write down my coefficients. But we're missing a term. There's no x cubed. We need to make sure we put a placeholder in there. Coefficients are 1, 1, 0, there's my placeholder, -7, 13, and 17. Always include the signs. Drop the first number down. -3 times 1 is -3. Add the column, -2. -2 times -3 is +6. Add the column, 6. -3 times 6 is -18. Add the column. That's -25. The fact that the numbers are getting bigger tells me this probably is not going to be a root. But let's see. -3 times -25 is +75. Add the column, 88. -3 times 88. Wow. That is -264. Add 17 and I get -247. This is my remainder. So it's definitely not a factor. Let's go back and write our quotient. We started with x to the 5th. So our first term is going to have x to the 4th. 1x to the 4th minus 2x cubed plus 6x squared minus 25x plus 88 minus 247 divided by x plus 3. This is the quotient. Number 11. Take the divisor, set it equal to 0, and solve for x. X equals -1. Put it in the box. Now we write down our coefficients. 4, 5, and 1. Was there anything missing? No. No placeholders needed. Drop the first one down, 4. Now multiply. -1 times 4 is -4. Add the column. 5 minus 4 is 1. -1 times +1 is -1. Add the column. 0. Woohoo! No remainder. Guess what that means? Yep, we have a factor. This is awesome. What is the factor? Well, we started with x squared, so my coefficients, I need to put my x's in there. We would have 4x plus 1. That is my quotient, and it is a factor of the trinomial 4x squared plus 5x plus 1. Number 12. Take the divisor, x plus 4, set it equal to 0. Solve for x. X is -4. Put it in the box. Now write down the coefficients. Are there any missing? No. So I have 3, -11, -76, +48. Always include the signs. Drop the first one down. Multiply. -4 times +3 is -12. Add the column. -23. Multiply. -4 times -23 is +96. Add the column. 16. Oh, that's 92. Now add the column. That's 16. Negative 4 times 16 is negative 64. Really close. Add the column, I get negative 16. My remainder is negative 16, so it's not a factor. Let's write our quotient. I started with x cubed, subtract 1 from the exponent, and let's put it in. So I'm going to have an x squared. 3x squared minus 23x plus 16 minus the remainder of 16 divided by x plus 4. This is the quotient for this problem. Number 13. Now we're going to use our shortcut for our shortcut. Doesn't that sound cool? So synthetic division was one shortcut. Remember this one, we're going to plug it in. I still need to take my divisor, x plus 2, and set it equal to 0. I get x of negative 2. We're going to take the x of negative 2 and we're going to plug it in. So I need to write my equation with parentheses everywhere there's an x. So I have 2 parentheses to the 4th plus 3 parentheses cubed minus parentheses squared minus 5 parentheses minus 4. Now we can plug in our negative 2. Everywhere there's a parenthesis, put that negative 2 in there. Okay, now we get to simplify. This is the crazy part. So 2 to the 4th, that's 16. 16 times 2 is 32. So I have 32 plus 2 cubed. That's going to be negative 8 times my 3. That's negative 24. Then I have 2 squared. That's 4, but there's a subtraction. Negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10, and then I have a minus 4 at the end. When I add all those numbers together, I get that the p of negative 2 is equal to 10. Is that a root? No. Remember, it has to be equal to 0. So it's not a root and it's not a factor. Number 14. Again, take the divisor, set equal to 0. X minus 7 equals 0. So x equals to 7. That's what I'm going to plug into my function. Write the function with parentheses everywhere there's an x. That's 5 parentheses cubed plus parentheses squared minus 7. Now plug in your x. 7, 7, 7. Everywhere there's parentheses, plug it in. Now we get to have crazy fun. Okay, so 7 cubed is 343. So that's going to be 5 times 343. 7 squared is 49, and that's minus 7. I'm pretty sure it's not equal to 0, but just for kicks and giggles, let's calculate it. The p of 7 is equal to 1,757. Definitely not equal to 0. Okay, is it a root? Is the x plus 7 a root? No, it's not a root and it's not a factor. Number 15, take the divisor, x minus 4. Set it equal to 0. Solve for x. X equals 4. Now write your function. P. Put parentheses in for every x. Parentheses 5th, parentheses to the 4th, plus 2 parentheses squared, minus parentheses minus 4. Now plug in your x. 4. Everywhere there's parentheses, put a 4. This is where it gets crazy fun. 4 to the 5th minus 4 to the 4th minus all this stuff. Plug it in the calculator. The answer is 792. P of 4 is 792. Is that a factor or a root? No, it is not a factor or a root. Number 16. Set the divisor equal to 0. X plus 5 equals 0. So x equals negative 5. Now take your p function and put parentheses everywhere there's an x. Parentheses cubed plus 125. Now plug in your x. Negative 5. So the p of negative 5. Let's simplify. P of negative 5 equals, well, negative 5 cubed is negative 125. Add that to 125 and you get 0. Yay! We found a factor or a root. Now which one is it? Here's the fun part. X equals negative 5. Negative 5 is the root. X plus 5, that is the factor. So the factor has the x with the number in the parentheses, and the root is the solution. This concludes all the practice problems for this lesson.